Hello, I am a member of the worldwide Christian body called the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which has been around since the 1840s, just a little bit longer than I've been around. What are you laughing at? It's true. And we do 4 Bible studies every year, one for each quarter of the year. This very first quarter, we are looking at the book of Psalms, the longest book in the Bible. Actually, it's 5 books all in one book, 5 song collections all in one book, 150 of them in total. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share how they speak to me personally. In our studying, we're going to look a lot at language, the original Hebrew language, its meaning, cases, tenses, rhetoric, historical context, meaning, all of that. We'll look at that. And I love getting in depth from an academic point of view. But once we've done that, we've got to ask the fundamental question always, how does this talk to me in a real way, in my life, in my context, where I live at this time in Earth's history? So that's what I'm going to talk about. If the Psalms were written today, what would be the equivalent? What are some of the things that we see in today's music, which is equivalent in some of the Psalms? Now, I'm not doing this to try to diminish or devalue the meaning of the Psalms, and I hope nobody gets disturbed if I, for example, make a reference to Stevie Wonder. I am not saying Stevie Wonder wrote the Psalms, so please just take everything in the spirit that it's intended. What I'm actually saying is that when I look at this, in fact, this is the way I like to study and read the Bible, is when I see the honesty, because the Psalms talk from a very honest point of view, they give me permission and encouragement to be authentic in my faith. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to be authentic and talk about this in a real world way, the same way that they, real people, talking about real situations, were expressing themselves in a very authentic way. So join me as we look at Psalms in a 2024 sort of way. Very first thing, very first word, blessed. I love the fact that Psalms begin with the word blessed, the very first Psalm. We are interested in your well-being. We want you to be happy. We want you to be prosperous. We want you to be fruitful. So what we're going to do, we're going to show you this way, which leads to prosperity and fruitfulness, this way, which doesn't. We are interested in you as an individual, as a human being, and your happiness and your joy. Psalm 1 is all about that. Many of the Psalms talk about love of the country. They're like the tourist ads. For example, you have such phrases as beautiful for situation. The joy of the earth is Mount Zion. And you have things like pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Now that speaks in a very 2024 way. I'm sure you would agree. Then there are the Psalms which talk about family life, such as a psalm which is believed to be written by Solomon, except the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain. There are the Psalms of education, which teach people their story, their journey, their history. And music is a brilliant way of teaching history. You can put things in poetry and song, and people can learn about their history through singing songs, through poetry. And Psalms does that in a magnificent way. But I'm going to get a bit geeky. Psalm 150 talks about praising the Lord on all these different instruments. Now, instruments make sound in different ways. So by air, strings vibrating, by you hitting them, the body of the instrument itself making sound. And musicologists have divided this into what they call aerophones, instruments played using air. So that's woodwind instruments, brass instruments, flutes, trumpets, and so forth. And idiophones, like cymbals, and membranophones, which have a membrane, like timbrels, and chordophones, like stringed instruments. All the different families of instruments are represented in Psalm 150. Very often, argument is what instrument is appropriate for praising the Lord, but all 4 families of instruments are included in Psalm 150. That is educational, inspirational. Then there are the African American spiritual type psalms. Now, a lot of African American spirituals are built on what's called call and response. Swing low, call. Coming forward, carry me home, response. These psalms would have been done using, it's believed, 2 choirs facing each other. It's known as antiphonal choirs. That's your word for today, antiphon. And if you look at Psalm 136, you can almost imagine this being like a spiritual. Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. The response phrase. Oh, give thanks unto the God of gods. Call. For his mercy endureth forever. Response phrase. So, as you can see, sounds coming from different angles. And for me, those are my African American spiritual psalms. And then you've got the blues psalms. These double-digit psalms, 22 and 77 and 88. In fact, Christ sang the first lines of Psalm 22, my God, why have you forsaken me?" when he was on the cross. And Psalm 77, you look at that, it starts quite dark, in a very dark place. Psalm 88, on the other hand, starts in a very dark place, but unlike the other psalms, which start in a dark place, but end up with something a bit more hopeful, Psalm 88 is just all blues. It's just all sorrow. The closing line of that psalm is, and in many modern versions, it's "Darkness is my closest friend," or "Darkness is my acquaintance" in the older versions. And then you got the protest psalms. These are called the imprecatory psalms. They're calling down curses on the enemy. And I know that doesn't sound very, gentle, Jesus, meek and mild, but that was the richness of the language and the openness with which they actually spoke about their situation when they were being pursued by the enemy, that they would actually cry out all of these and take care of the enemy in a really, really strong way. So this is kind of the drill, the hip hop, the protest songs of the day. And then you've got the Father, Father, oh mercy, mercy me type psalms which speak about social justice, social responsibility. We often think of psalms as being about praise to God. And of course, they are songs which were used in services. There is a liturgical use of the psalms, but also psalms speak about everyday life as well. And social responsibility is something that you will find in the psalms, helping the poor, the fatherless, the widow, and so forth. And then there is the romance, and what I almost see as cinematic music. Psalm 18, have a look at that one. It begins, "I love you, Lord." Not just I love the Lord, but I love you, Lord. And you see this personal relationship language within the Psalms where they're very open and honest about what God means to them, and they express it in very open and honest ways. But this psalm, read on about this psalm and see this great, heroic, almost cinematic, I imagine a big screen, this cinematic rescue, talking about God rescuing the one who he delights in, and the person's in trouble in waters, and then it says God comes to rescue, but it doesn't say he rescued me. It describes kind of riding on the wings, and you can imagine just riding, just going through the skies and then reaching down and pulling somebody up from the waves. I always, when I read that, just think the big screen, and I need to set the soundtrack to that, but it's just so dramatic when you read that. I always love reading that Psalm 18. And then you got these psalms which say, "Let's get the party started." Some of the psalms, of course, are the liturgical psalms, but a lot of them were also used in their festivals. And they had lots of festivals, and they liked feasting, and they liked to enjoy themselves. So you got these "Let's get the party started" psalms. Make a joyful noise, shout to the Lord. And if you look at the original meanings of the words, the original Hebrew meanings, like Shabach and Ruah, Ranan, they're like, make crazy noise, like you've lost your mind. It's that depth and that richness of language which sort of says, look, all the emotions and the energies that you have inside of you, you don't have to hold back, but you can use them for a noble purpose in praise and in celebration. And there's a DJ psalm in Psalm 81. Like, you know, when the DJ puts something on and says, right, let's get the drums, and you can see that happening. It says, shout joyfully, right, get the harp, bring in some harp. Let's bring in some drums, bring the timbrel, right, blow the trumpet, make some noise, everybody. And Psalm 81, let's get the party started. I've got so much more I can share, but I've run out of time, but I will be back, so do join me again. As I said, the whole idea behind this is so that the head, the academic stuff, can connect with the heart, so that we can understand, but also we can live, we can breathe, we can embrace. This can change us, this can move us, help us to change and move others, make this world a better place, give better praise, glory to God, and we ourselves also can be encouraged by it as well. The Psalms, in a 2024 sort of way. I will be back. Do join me again. Thank you.